Welcome to Everyday Elephants. I'm your host, Katie Bradley, and in a minute I'll be joined with Phil and Ted. Tanner will not be joining us today, but he'll be back next week. Everyday Elephants is a podcast that discusses what the world is discussing. We take a close look at the elephants in the room, everything from politics to trends to religion. Together, we look for the hope for where hope it lies in the midst of change and chaos and confusion. Welcome to Everyday Elephants. What's up, guys? Hi, Phil. Hi, Ted.
Hey, Katie. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you guys. Phil, you look better than last week. I know you were struggling with COVID and, getting better. How are you feeling?
Listen, it was my first day back at work today, and yesterday was also my first day where I did not have to take a nap throughout the day. So I think I'm getting better. The COVID got to me, and it's pretty real. Lost my senses, my smell, my taste, and my appreciation for life. It sucked everything away from me, but I'm back and better than ever before.
That's so good to hear. Isn't it crazy how much taste and smell brings so much joy to our life? And then when it's taken away, when we can't taste our food, when we can't smell things and enjoy our it takes away. It has a big impact, right?
Totally. And Kyrie can't smell. So my nose is dependent upon things happening in our household. And so now that we lost both of our sense of smell, it was getting pretty bad. So we can't smell poopy diapers. I don't know how I'm going to be able to describe to Kyrie the types of smells that are going on within the home. But we managed to survive, and I'm glad to have it back.
Good. No fire yet, so that's good.
Yep, exactly.
Ted, how are you doing? How did you guys hold up in the storm?
We made it through. Just lost power for a day. We still have folks in Austin here. No one I know, but just folks I've read about that are still without power. We had some people at church yesterday that they got their power back this morning at 3 a.m. So just ice accumulation in a place that doesn't deal with ice accumulation made it an interesting 3-4 days. But it was really cool. We had some folks after church yesterday who just loaded it was a lot of fun when I finally had internet back. I could send out an email to church and say hey, if anyone needs help, please let me know. And we had 3 houses that we went to go help at, and the amount of responses when I said, let me know if you can help and what tools you can bring, the speed at which I got, I have a chainsaw and I'll bring it on Sunday. I think I got 4 or 5 responses in a matter of 10 minutes. So there were a lot of people ready to go out and fire up the chainsaw and get some work done. But it was really good. It was even cool. On Saturday we had a meeting planned for church stuff and for some leadership stuff, and so we couldn't get out that day, but even driving to that meeting, just saw neighbors out helping neighbors clearing stuff. And I have a couple branches I gotta go cut off a tree after we're done here. But
sounds like a great missions opportunity. Bring your chainsaw to church day.
That's right.
I like it.
Sunday.
For some reason I'm there at Narrative.
You're about that life.
That marketing brought me in right there. So
I love it.
You're onto something, man. That's good.
Perfect.
That's great. It shows you the power of the church too, everybody coming together. I feel like in Florida when we go through hurricanes too, that's my favorite part, is when the neighborhood comes together and everyone's in the same boat. So I mean, you're without power, you're without electricity, hot water, whatever it is that you're missing, but everybody's kind of together in it and it brings you together. So that's a cool opportunity, But yeah, chainsaws, I mean, I don't have the same response to chainsaws as you do, Phil. But I'm sure it's awesome to go to church with everyone's chainsaws.
I'm just noticing how people responded. True, but the response rate of how excited people were to bring their chainsaws to the parking lot to church, there's something to learn from there. Data never lies, man. So.
Good to know. Well, today we're going to be discussing a few topics. So first, Chinese balloons. What is that about? So we're going to be talking about the recent activity of our U.S. military shooting down a Chinese balloon and what that means. Is that something to be worried about? Are we in danger? Are we secure? Is it just propaganda? So we're going to get to that in a little bit. But first, we do not want to skip over the cultural drama of the Grammys and really discuss what's been going on. But from a Christian perspective, of course, we want to touch on about Unholy by Kim Petras and Sam Smith. Their performance, there was no discrete representation of Satan in their performance. So we're going to really jump into that. There's some talk about, hey, our kids are being taught to worship Satan, and this is something that needs to be talked about and addressed. Or is this just art? Is this just an extension or an expression of art? Is this something to be worried about? So we're going to jump into these topics and let's get started. Are you guys ready?
I think so.
All right, here we go. Ding,
Yeah.
ding. Let's get started. So let's start with the Grammys last night with the performance of Unholy. What are your thoughts? Is this something to be concerned about?
I mean, my thoughts are the Grammys were last night. Like, I mean,
Right.
the only reason I really
Shit.
knew it was last night was I saw some people talking about it on different social media. I haven't watched award shows in a long time. It's not my jam. Like, award shows are
Fair.
always a funny thing to me because it's like, here's the music industry. Let's give each other awards, and you can watch us do that. Okay, like that's great. Proud of you. You know, I'm all for awards. I'm all for like your industry celebrating what you do, and even like having like make a celebration out of it. Have food, have a banquet. I don't quite get the allure of the show. Now that's me. I understand there are people who love it and are into it. Baseball season starts next week with pitchers and catchers reporting, and that's something that I'll spend a lot of time doing. So, to each his own. I had to, when you guys started texting about that video, I had to go look it up because I hadn't seen it. So that was my gig on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, go ahead, Phil.
Isn't there like always something big that happens at the Grammys? Is this where like Kanye came up to Taylor and
Yeah.
or was it another music award
No, that was the
show?
Grammys back in the day.
Okay, so it's just there's always something big and always something happening. I mean, that's my same response to Ted. Oh, there's an award show on. Like, I really don't care, except when my Twitter feed is blowing up with all these different videos that are showing up, just like this particular video right here. It's a little bit of alarming, but it is wild. Normally, I think the Grammys are pretty cool because a lot of people are their art and their songs, and they're performing live on stage. And well, this one definitely took it to the next. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Katie, with what you saw?
Yeah, so I used to be really into award shows, especially growing up. I was a theater kid, I was a debate kid, so the arts, and then I was a communication major in college, so rhetorical criticism, really talking about what performances mean and speeches mean, and really breaking it down. Those are all things that I just love to do. But as I get older, I didn't even know what was going on. So I'm in the same boat where I had to go and really look into this and what does this mean? The reason it is concerning, the reason that I do have thoughts on it is because it is so impactful on the next generation, where Gen X and even a lot of millennials, they are watching this platform and they are probably more aware about the Grammys than the Chinese balloon, to be honest. So that's their news. That is their biggest interest. So of course that sparks my interest because we want to leave a legacy of hope and truth. And then we see this happen and we have to kind of come up with thoughts around it and opinions and how to speak truth into it. So when I watched this, yeah, I was concerned. And the reason why is because listen, like there was a huge Satan reference to it all. Okay. But that's the obvious. We don't need to, oh, I wonder if this means something, if there's some symbolism in it. There was nothing discreet about it. It was all out in the open. So, and my thing is like, listen, the world's going to do what the world's going to do. But the message I think the message of the song and the entertainment aspect of it, and the frenzy and the emotion that it kind of catches people up in, that's what's really concerning, because I don't know if we have a generation that's really able to discern the difference between what emotionally feels really good and what's really exciting and what's really awesome versus what is true and what is grounded and what is sturdy. So yeah, when I saw this and I saw what was being promoted in this song, and just the entertainment aspect of it, great entertainment if you're just looking at it from an art perspective, but yeah, it was very as a Christian, I felt very uneasy. I felt really uncomfortable, and I thought, wow, with this new age mind ideology growing in our culture more than anything else, like all we need now is for this to really reinforce that. And that, so for me, yes, I do have a lot of thoughts, but I want to stop there and ask this question for you guys
Well,
too. Go ahead,
Which did
Ted.
we say what the song was? Did we mention that already?
I did
yeah,
mention
yeah,
it.
Katie did at the
Okay, cool.
beginning.
Yes, it is Unholy by Kim Petra and Sam Smith.
Okay.
My question is it new? Like I know it's hit a lot of news sites today, and there's a lot of people talking about it on social media. My thought process is like it's it feels like they wanted to make it edgy, and it was edgy in some respects, I guess, but like I don't know, hair metal was doing the whole devil worship thing in the 80s. I don't know. I would agree that I don't like it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like if we had kids even up into like high school years, if that were to come on, like we would turn the TV off. Like it's not something we need. For me, the devil side of it is not as big as like for me the lyrics, which is like it is a catchy song that is obviously written to hook you in, and like it pulls you in, and it is the entire song is about a husband or boyfriend. Let's see, does it mention
He has kids.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's, we'll say husband, you know, and it's all about him cheating, but it's like set up as like the first verse is about him cheating, the second verse is his, he's the sugar daddy and whatever you call the opposite of that, and so to me it's glorifying. It's not just like the normal sexual glorification, but now it's like, he's discovering himself, and mama doesn't know, like, and but it's not like there's a negative connotation to that, and that to me just, I don't like it. Like it's
So
and
I first heard the song on TikTok probably about a month ago.
Yeah.
And then my first reaction was like, dang, this is good. And then I had to listen to it again. I was like, oh. And
Yeah.
it's funny because yesterday, like, I heard the song for the first time. And this was before the Grammys were on. It was in the afternoon. It was just like it came on my Spotify list and I was listening. And I was like, oh gosh, are they really saying that? And I was like, this is probably not a song for me to be listening to. And it's just like, man, it's just so easy to go from, man, this is so catchy, this is so good, and then it, like, you just ease into it, and then by the time you're watching the Grammys, like, oh, like, what a beautiful song, what a beautiful art, like, no big deal. And I think that's where I think I see your side, Katie, like that it's concerning. I also see your side too, Ted. Is
well,
this
and
anything
my
new?
side isn't against. It's
Yeah.
not against Katie. I'm because I think Katie's right. I think, but I think when I was in high school, it was Katy Perry's "I Kissed a Girl" was a big, the big song that kind of took the Grammys by storm.
Yep.
You had, I forget what the song was, but Britney kissed Madonna, and that was a big Grammy moment.
Well, I remember when
And-
Kanye was performing one time, and he was like literally the devil performing in a performance too before. I mean, Kanye's been all over the place, but like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
did literally a satanic ritual dance music video shot, whatever you want to call it. And so I get it. Like this stuff happens all the time. But holy smokes, it was pretty graphic, and combine the words to it.
It was,
just like,
I will say,
I don't know if I should be watching this.
It's more than it was when I was younger. Like, I mean, that is true. It has turned up. Like those early things have enabled now that, like, when I finally like watched the video, like I saw it and I wasn't surprised. Like I wasn't shocked. And there's a reason. I've been desensitized. So
Yeah.
Right. And I think what's different now than maybe back when, this isn't a new thing, right? But I think what's different now is that younger children have more access, and they're not
That's a
just
good
watching
point.
Grammys, they're having access into Kim Petras' life, into Sam Smith's life, and they have a lot of influence in their life. So there's just more ground that these artists are covering in the lives of young minds than maybe generations in the past. And there's just a battle for truth and just sturdiness in young kids' minds. And now this is really opening a door to, a lot of the song too, when Kim Petras' part comes on, and she's saying, this is what he gets me. And she's naming all these like high-end fashion industries, and, like she's like going to do him many favors, and she's just there for him. This is very like, this is opening that culture, like that that culture to young children's minds, and they know so much about it that it's such a norm. And it's normalizing just this. And now we have on social media, we do have older people grooming and priming young children and reaching out to them. And of course, they see a song like this and, oh, it's no big deal. Like I can message back so-and-so who I don't know. They can be my sugar daddy. And now we have an influence in trafficking like never before in the US. And just even going back to, I know this was kind of old news, but Balenciaga is mentioned in this song. And okay, thank the Lord, like Balenciaga was called out they were caught doing, but that's not anything new. There's been sex trafficking and children, porn and children sex trafficking going on for so long in the US. And there is no mistaking that fast fashion has a lot to do with it. And who's supporting fast fashion? The strip clubs, the artists, the song industry, the
Real
sport
quick,
industry.
Katie, before you keep going, because I'm literally, as I read about those, I thought, I'm so uncool. I shop at Kohl's. Like, that's where I go. So let me ask you this. Can you define, for the audience, not for anyone here, but for people out there who may not know,
And for us, Katie, because I shop at Kohl's
out
too.
there, can you tell us what is fast fashion? Because I think, like, fast
Great
fashion,
question.
we made it quickly. Look at us. Like, but what do you quantify fast fashion as?
Yes, well, that's like pretty much what we say is what it is. Fast fashion is the fashion industry as a whole, collectively, not just high end like the Gucci and all that stuff, but just how fashion is moving so quickly from one trend to the next, to the next trend, to the next trend. There's funding, there's organizations around this. And how does fast fashion happen? Through workers, through people in sweatshops in other countries. And this is something that fast fashion has no shame to do what they have to do in order for their thing, for their trend to be on top. And it's flipping as the week goes by.
So
Go ahead.
With fast fashion, and this is, again, for me to learn more, because I don't know a lot, would fast fashion be like, I can go to Walmart and get cheap. That's not fast fashion. That's just, cheap fashion. What you're saying is like the top level stuff that's like, okay, Balenciaga made this trend. Well, now that was in the summer and now it's winter. Who's going to have the top trend? Is that what you're saying? Like, am I picking that up right?
Right. Yes, in a way. But I'm
Okay.
not to put people in so much bondage and really high anxiety around this, but it does infiltrate even our Walmart and even our Target and even
Okay.
our mediocre, like our shopping habits. So not to this that can be like a whole
Just
nother
don't say Kohl's for me
conversation.
and Ted, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
we
Just
want to
leave
feel really good
leave
about ourselves
Coles
right
out
now.
of this, Katie.
Kohl's and
I
Target.
am
Kohl's and Target, please.
listen, and I have
Don't tell me the
no
truth.
I have nothing against a lot of these stores and like TJ Maxx. I shop there all the time. But it's funny because when I was working with an organization, and we'll come back to the song in a minute, but just to kind of emphasize what the song is really, there's just a lot you can just pull apart that really deep down is just doing a lot of damage. But okay, but yes, fast fashion, you can see it everywhere in any store. And actually, when I was working with an organization, we did a lot of research, and there is resources out there. And I would love to have maybe a friend or a guest on maybe sometime to talk about this. That's really a good expert in this. I'm not an expert in it, but she really funds slow fashion and all the tools that we can use um, to to thrift, to reuse clothes, to take care of our clothes, so that we're not having to really put money and fund a lot of the fashion industry because of such the huge link to human trafficking that it has. But all that to say is, yes, there is, if you do dig deeper, even our mundane shopping places they are influenced by a lot of this. But I'm not going to name any names, so don't worry. I'm not going to say
No,
Kohl's
no,
or
you're fine. No,
okay.
that's well, but Katie, it's such a fascinating thing because like, and I'll bring it back to the song for us, right? Like,
Yes.
because this isn't the only song where I've heard about Balenciaga or Gucci or
Right.
because here's firing up in my head again another TikTok song that like kicks off, which is the Megan Trainor. Um, all I know is like I have my Gucci on, like
Yeah.
that one,
I made
right?
you
Right.
look.
Right, yeah,
Dun, dun,
exactly.
dun, dun.
And I'm not gonna dive that song, but like in general, like I could fire off songs that I don't know the whole song, but I could pick up on Gucci, Balenciaga,
Right.
Prada, those kinds of things. And to me, the fascinating thing, as you mentioned that, in an industry as a whole, in the entertainment industry, where there always seems to be what I would argue a healthy push towards well, I'd say starts as a healthy push towards fairness and equality. That I think there is something about art in its performative value that lets us see the world through a new lens. And I think because of that, performers and artists sometimes can see the world in ways that see the inequality, that see those kinds of things. And it's always fascinating to me when you can see that. And here's this song that post Me Too movement, post a lot of discussion about fast fashion. Now that I know what it is and can identify, fast fashion, sweatshops, how do we, give people, help people be compensated well for their labor? These are industries that have
Mhm.
strong unions. Um, and here they are singing about, basically dehumanizing a woman to a sexual object to make money,
Mhm.
to get these things that there's potential, you look at those things. And so to me, and we're looking at this song, we can do this can happen everywhere. This happens in the church, this happens everywhere, but it is one of these moments where as humans there's a disconnect where the singing and everything is like the industry would say, yeah, we're trying to build women up, we're trying to help people make money, we're trying to do all
Yeah.
these things, and yet here's this celebration of things that are opposite to that. And that gets back to what you're saying in truth is like the way truth cuts, the way that I as a Christian have to look at my life and say, so every week for us in our liturgy we do the confession absolution. And the reason we do it every week is because it's important for us to look in the reality of who we are. Now, in a Christian worldview, in our belief in Jesus, that's because we trust his promises to bring forgiveness for those things. But I do believe that it's important for us to realize we're going to, as humans, these are our tendencies. because of sinful nature. And so to look and say, like, hey, here are all these things that on the one hand, you know, the Grammys would stand up and say, hey, we want these things, and then to platform a song, you know, to put it front and center, man, that's some dissonance. That's some disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope that makes sense. I just went straight into extroversion there, so I hope that
No, I think that's great. And I think it really shows you that our real spiritual warfare really isn't.
Do you own
it's
your
not just what we saw with just Satan being represented, whatever. You know, our real spiritual warfare is taking down the strongholds of ideologies that come up against the knowledge of Christ. And that's what this is that the world sees a lot going on that's wrong, and they try to do something about it, but their love for money overtakes the other side of it. And that's never going to be solved, because the real issue is the ideology that lies behind it. It's the conviction for truth and for God's way to be the only way. And you know, that's really our spiritual warfare. We can pray against demonic influence all day long, but really, if we don't have a good standing of truth and reason and able to spit that out when it counts and to execute it in a way that we're able to change people's minds about what is true, what is reasonable, what makes sense, what is holy, if I could, you know, like that's really our battle. That's the warfare. Yes. And pray, for sure. Pray. But it's not that we're praying against every single demon and influence. It's that the hierarchy of the Satan demonic thought that is over our culture and nation. Those are the things that we need to stand against and stand firm against, for sure. Phil, do you have any thoughts on this before we move on to Chinese balloons?
I mean, I'm ready for Chinese balloons, but I mean, here's the deal. There's just so much hypocrisy, as you guys are pointing out. And it's just like, when you think that we're making, let's just say, make any progress, like, let's just look at Me Too, and I'm just going to label that as progress, right? Because it's naming, you know, where there's abuse and, you know, where there's women that have been mistreated. And it's just, you know, raising up the conversation, which was not talked about often. And then you go to something like this and we're supposed to be okay with it. I don't even understand, even from a secular standpoint, let alone a Christian standpoint, like, how can we just be okay with this? And why do we glorify these things? And also, just like me and everyone else, like, there's just so many bits that I listen to on TikTok or Reels that I'm not even thinking about, but man, that beat sounds so good. And then next thing you know it, like, I become so numb and okay to whatever is out there and just accepting. And it's a reality. I need to look in the mirror and check myself.
For sure. And that's a great point. There's so many songs I feel the same too. Yep. And, you know, for this song, a little different. I haven't really heard it that much. That's just me. But there's definitely songs like Ariana Grande's God is a Woman, you know, and that was a song I was jamming out to. And I was convicted and was like, this is really not something I want to listen to. So, yeah. So I think we all, in our culture, we do have to be on guard and make those changes and convictions based on, you know, what is true and right and holy. So going into Chinese balloons, well, we have just recently heard that the U.S. military shot down a Chinese balloon that could have gotten surveillance, could have gotten information and data, really important, you know, things about the U.S. And they shot it down. I think it's in the Atlantic Ocean, and now they're looking for it. Who knows if they're going to find anything? Is this something to be concerned about?
First, I want us to lean into the comedy of this bit. I want us to
talk about it.
Just step back for a moment and say that we'll talk about some serious stuff. That we have gone full circle in terms of like surveillance and intelligence gathering, because it's not just the Chinese. Like, I've now read a couple articles about how the Pentagon is like tripling their balloon budget because the balloon, you know, moves slower. it gets closer, it can intercept more signals. And so, like, the Pentagon is upping their budget to do similar things. And to me, like, they're just pieces of this story that are phenomenal. So the F-22, which is the 5th generation fighter, the fighter of the future, it costs $200 million to make one of these jets. And its first air-to-air kill is a balloon.
Was a balloon. And you know how much it costs one of those missiles to be shot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, to put these things in the air costs $100,000 an hour. $80,000. I saw between $70,000 and $80,000.
That missile was $500,000. Was it five? I don't even know. I think it was $500,000 for that missile to be shot too.
Easy. And so there's a lot, and like some of the videos, like, because it's flying over Myrtle Beach, right? So South Carolina is where they saw it get shot down. And I saw this incredible video, and it's two good old boys sitting in the backyard with their cell phone out. You can tell they've been day drinking, getting ready for something to happen. And the string of curse words that come out of their mouths, but it's just literally like, oh, we got him! You know, like, and it's just this moment of like, nothing brings our country together like the World Cup, the Olympics, and shooting down a balloon. Like, it was just kind of this moment of...
But did it really bring the country together? I mean, there was...
When it got shot down. Yes. When it got shot down, you can't tell me there's a single red-blooded American that wasn't like, oh my gosh, we just shot a missile at a balloon. Like, you can't, even right-wing, left-wing, I don't care who you are. When that missile was fired, you got excited. Like... you can be upset about where it happened. Yeah, but
are you excited about how much it cost to shoot that missile? Like, people are debating on that right now.
My thing is, why?
You could have thrown darts at that balloon and it would have deflated and went down. I mean...
Well, Phil, do it at 50,000 feet. Show me you getting to 50,000 feet to throw a dart at that balloon.
You know, it'd be really cool. There's a bunch of like skydivers just going down and just like chucking darts at it, you know, trying to get the balloon. I mean,
okay. See now we've gotten really American reality TV of taking out the balloon. See, exactly. Now I'm on board with that. I'm on board. This fall on NBC, The Balloon.
You know what is actually pretty interesting about this? There was a report from Lucas Tomlinson, who is reported on Fox News. And, you know, people are debating, you know, well, if this was under Trump, you know, none of this would have ever happened. But actually, there was a report that a balloon was over Texas and Florida in 2018. And I guess 4 months ago, there was a balloon that was near Hawaii. So, like, these things are happening all the time. And if we're so concerned about freaking balloons, like, get off your TikTok accounts, everyone. Like, they already have all our information. And there's satellites up in the air. Like, I mean, up in space. They're taking pictures all the time. Like, the amount of data and information that they have is just... We're so upset about this, but yet we're also doing the same thing, too.
Well, and it's part of, like, intelligence gathering in the information age. Is like, the truth is, if you don't want to be known, I mean, there's a reason why they show now on TV shows when people go into operationally secure rooms, right? They all take their phones out and leave them outside the room. You know, because a cell phone is a world brain in your pocket that can be hacked.
Yep.
You know, the computers we're talking on right now. I mean, it is, and so I don't know what the solution. It is unnerving, right? Like, I don't know what the solution was, but it is unnerving to wake up one morning last week and it be like, Chinese spy balloon over Montana. Like, that's not a fun headline to see.
No.
Right. And my question was, why did it take them so long and to shoot it down if they were that concerned? And especially if this was something that happened in the past, why did we know about this one versus the other ones? And why did the media cover it? In my mind, I'm thinking What do they what is their agenda? Is this propaganda? Is this something, are they trying to instill fear, or is it supposed to make one side look better because they are acting on it? Is it something we should be concerned about? So like I don't know. I think the fact that they knew about it for a week before they actually shot it down, that kind of was odd to me. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I was reading they interviewed the general in charge of NORAD, based out of Colorado. So that's the main it's the main like satellite center for the U.S. and they cover what is in the air over the United States. And what he said was they picked it up over the Aleutians, so in Alaska, but it wasn't moving with intent, is the way he put it. So they couldn't, if it's over international waters and then over national waters, like that there was no like movement towards intent. So like they've got to figure out, is this a weather balloon? Is it not? And they had figured it out. And from what they said, what NORAD was saying was they had the technology to counter what it was doing, to stop it from transmitting. I'm sure, well, I have no idea, but they could stop it, like the electronic warfare, to a point. And then once it was past and into Alaska, I think the way it sounded was they wanted to get their hands on the tech and see what's in there. So then you got to wait for it to travel across the U.S. to get over the ocean again, so that there's hope that you can recover, some of what's on it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the deal, though. Like, I get that, right? And I'm like, oh, they know what they're doing. Here's some really smart-minded government officials that know warfare and, attacks and counterattacks and all that stuff. And then we get to the point where they shoot it down with a very expensive, plane, right? With a very expensive missile. And it's just like, wait a minute, like, you're telling me that it cost us that much to take something down? Like, how am I supposed to trust all the other stuff that's going on when it could have been, I don't know, taken down much easier than it already was?
How would you take it down, Phil?
I don't know. You could still take a plane up there and use like a machine gun instead of using a $500,000 missile to take it down.
Can you?
I don't know. Possibly.
See, and that's what I think there needs
We
to be.
should put you in charge.
Well, but there's discussion around. I was reading up on some of these pilots saying, listen, when you get to that high of an altitude, there's a reason they sent the F-22, because the F-22 is the fighter that can make it to that altitude. Because when you start hitting that high of an altitude, you're starting to push on the edges of atmosphere and space. And so part of it was they said, yeah, you could shoot it possibly.
But didn't it go down much lower? It wasn't at 60,000 feet anymore. It came down where people could
lower?
see
And
it.
to be fair, I read at the beginning of the week.
Yeah,
when
at
it was over
the beginning
Montana.
it was really high, but when it came down in South Carolina, people were able to see it from their phones. That's how they had the video right there. So it wasn't that high, which means you can use most, air defense to be able to take
A
something
drone.
down. Yeah, there you go, a
Get
drone.
a high-tech drone and take some shots. Who knows?
I get what you're saying, Ted, and I still want to put my trust in the government, although I still want to be. I have so many questions with all this going on. Again, I'm not going to get so alarmed over balloons. I think this is probably the
Phil,
first time.
let me
fact
check
checking
you
me?
there.
Yep, fact check.
I
Please
just
do.
showed it.
Federal aviation restricted airspace Saturday afternoon over 3 cities in North and South Carolina as military assets moved into position. The balloon was flying at roughly 60,000 feet.
When
an
it got shot
altitude
down?
about twice that of normal air traffic.
Okay. Well,
So
there you go.
it was, but I saw the NORAD general, so what you said is true. People were picking it up on their phones. The balloon was 200 feet, like high. Like, it is huge. So that's why people were able to pick it up on their phones.
Oh,
they
you mean the
said-
size of the actual balloon?
Yeah, so like in height,
Oh,
it was
wow.
like 200 feet.
The source that I
Wow.
found
Wow.
says that the size of the balloon was 3 buses. And
Yeah, so the gear it was carrying was like the size of 3
Yeah.
school buses end to
And
end.
the quote that I have from the I don't know, some military commander was like, they had determined that downing the balloon while over land posed a risk to people across the area, so that's why they shot it down over the ocean. Anyway,
Got to protect that wildlife in Wyoming,
That's right in the middle of Montana, that very
Montana. Yeah,
populous state.
yeah, exactly.
Idaho.
That's the reason.
Well,
Save
Katie,
the animals, Katie.
Oh,
Katie, I think it
listen.
does come back though to like, how do we feel? Because it is like, no matter what happened with the government, with how it was handled, it's like there are satellites going over us all the time, but we don't think about them because we don't see them. And now
Right.
it's like, ooh,
Right.
this is like here. Like,
Right. We can see it. Yeah. And it feels like an invasion of privacy. And it feels also
Right.
like we're just not secure at all. I mean, so like, because I don't think about it often at all either, about how much access other countries have, and even our country, to our social media, to all of our information. We're just, I mean, right now they're probably listening to us because we have trigger words and we're talking
that's right.
about
We've
Chinese
said unholy balloon all in the same phrase. Yeah.
and yep. So we are definitely red targeted right now. No, but thinking about that and that idea of security, I mean, so just thinking about this question of just security in general, because oftentimes as an American, we can feel secure being an American because we think, oh, we're in America. We have a good national security. We have great resources. But every now and then things happen to remind us that no matter how secure we feel, we aren't always secure. And
Yeah.
there are nations that do have technology that is more advanced, or they have resources also. So how do we as Christians and as people rest secure just on the land that we stand? How can we feel and rest secure?
One thing I love is the reality that Jesus speaks in, that a lot of times we can take what Jesus says and almost disconnect it to that spiritual level. But God created us both, physical and spiritual. So he doesn't look at us as humans and go, yeah, you just need to spiritually disconnect. You don't have to worry about the world. No, he says, come to me. And I love at one point, Jesus says, there will always be wars and rumors of wars. And what that doesn't discount is the wars, like that they're happening. He's saying, like, listen, that's always going to be how it is. And I think for me, like you said, Katie, like, I've lived a blessed lifetime where there's been no draft to bring in mass groups of people to fight a world war. There's been wars. We have sent a lot of people overseas to fight, but there's been no fighting on on mainland America. There has not been a war really in large part since the Civil War. And that's a strange thing in the history of our world, that like a country, a continent would see that. And so I think for me, like to like what you said, to like, okay, now this is here. Ooh, how does that make me feel? I just got to go back to there will always be wars and rumors of wars, and lean into this is a possibility that could always happen. There's always potential that there could be war where I live, when I live. How do I trust Jesus today, knowing that that's a possibility?
I think of
that's
Pontius
good.
Pilate, his interactions with Jesus, when he's getting ready to sentence him, right? And Jesus responds about his kingdom when, Pontius Pilate's like, where are your people at? You can stop this. And he talks about just his kingdom's not of this world, right? And there are plenty of powerful forces and countries and empires and that have what it would seem to be have more power and control over the church, right? And it's not necessarily, I think, our role as Christians to be able to fight for that power and security. I mean, it's nice to be able to have that, and nice to live in a country that is that the hope is that they're protecting us, right? But ultimately, the kingdom of Jesus is, he rules this world, but it's not of this world. And so I place my hope in that, right? It's easy for me to be able to start blaming and pointing the direction at a particular administration for not handling this the right way, and it's like I'm eating crow too when I find out, well, this has been happening even in the previous presidential regimes. And so this is something that's happening, and sure, you feel kind of exposed, but then I have to remember, like, man, there's so many other devices that have my information, that have access to those things, that is much different than a balloon that is floating in the air. So, yeah.
That's good. Those are both really good points. And just to add on that too, very similar thoughts that I have. I think about David. A lot of the Psalms talk about under his wings, we are sheltered under his wings. His name is our strong tower. His righteousness is our shield. Those things, when we really believe those are true, like down to the core, then that's our reality. We're not easily shaken by these things. That's easier said than done, but we have the privilege of day by day walking with Christ and practicing what it means to deny ourselves and take up our cross daily and allow his wings and his righteousness and his covering to be our shield, so that when things like this do happen, we already know what it's like to constantly, daily be under the covering and protection of Jesus, knowing that I cannot do this life without him. And that's just talking about my own sin and resting secure in my own flesh. But when we practice that daily, when the world is out of control and chaos, it is so much easier to say, I've been doing this for 10 years daily. I've been doing this for 5 years daily. I've been resting on this truth that now when this kind of stuff comes up, I already know what it's like to deny my flesh. I already know what it is to suffer. I already know what it is to hold on to these truths. And it feels the same, even though the terrain looks different. So we do have with Christ this privilege of walking with him daily, that we get to live this out. So this is a great conversation, guys. It has been such an awesome time talking to you about Unholy and Chinese balloons and
balloons.
And balloons. So
you know what I realized? We forgot to mention the most important part after the whole Unholy performance, that it was brought to you by Pfizer.
That's right. Comedy everywhere.
Yes.
Comedy everywhere.
It's great. I don't want to make any connections, but,
You're opening a can of worms right at the end of time. So
that's right.
Should we have a whole episode on that? Maybe.
We'll be back next week.
Yes. We'll be back next week. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.